Servus ihr Lieben und hallo Freunde des gepflegten Brettspiels. Ich bin hier auf der UK Games Expo und ich habe mir heute einen ganz besonderen Gast ausgesucht, und zwar Justin Gary von Stoneblade Entertainment. Der hat außerdem noch einen ziemlich coolen Podcast, über den wir später noch reden werden. Aber jetzt, Justin, would you mind introducing yourself a little bit to our viewers?
Sure, absolutely. Justin Gary, so I'm CEO of Stoneblade Entertainment, most known for designing games like Ascension, Shards of Infinity, SolForge Fusion, and I also teach design and creativity through my Think Like a Game Designer course, books, and podcast.
You brought to the fair the new SolForge Fusion. That's a mixture of Keyforge and Magic, sort of.
Sort of. So it's something I did co-design with Richard Garfield, the creator of Magic the Gathering. And so the game is what we call a hybrid deck game. So every deck you buy is one of a kind, just like Keyforge, except you can shuffle any of the two decks together to play, so you can still customize it. And the game, so that it's kind of like a Magic's the Jumpstart with Keyforge, but the gameplay is 100% unique. There's no mana system. The gameplay itself, every card levels up every time you play it. So sort of like a deck building game. Every 3 turns you shuffle your deck, and so there's you have lane-based combat, and it's a really fun, really quick to play game that uses an innovative system and then uses this new technology. And we just introduced here at the show that every deck also has a unique QR code. You could scan to your online account and play your unique deck online as well. So it's a real new generation of games. It takes the best of trading card games, the best of deck building games, and turns them into something new.
How did you do the leveling up mechanically?
So in the physical game, when you each turn you draw a hand of 5 cards. Whenever you play a card, you go to your leveled up deck, grab your leveled up card, put it in your discard pile. So if I play a level 1 card, I grab the level 2, put it in my discard pile. If I play a level 2, I grab the level 3, put it in my discard pile, and then every 3 turns you shuffle. So you'll alternate playing cards back and forth, and then start getting more and more powerful as the game goes on. And that's actually also how we balance the game too. There's no mana system or anything like that, so if a card is super strong at level 1, probably it doesn't level as well. But if it's really weak at level 1, like our most powerful level 3 card starts off as just a little 1/1, and it turns into a giant 30/30 monster at the end. So it's a really fun way that's you get to tell a story by the cards leveling, and it also helps balance the game, and so it's a really fun, quick system to play.
So you get better as long as you play, the more you play with your deck, because you get to know your deck and then you know what to level up.
Yes, exactly, and it's very reactive too, because if your opponent is playing certain types of cards where you know maybe they have a stronger late game than you do, you might want to invest in trying to beat them quickly, and so you'll play some more aggressive cards too. So you get to learn your deck better, and you get to kind of learn the different matchups better. And one of the things I love about this kind of game, because every deck's one of a kind, you can't just copy, right? So my old background, I was a Magic Pro player. I was a U.S. national champion, traveled around the world, and it's fun. I love that play, but at the end, right, everybody knows if you play a trading card game, everybody just eventually plays the same decks, right? We all copy the best cards, the best decks. You can't do that in a game like this. You have to make do with what you have and strategize around what you have, and we built the algorithm so that the decks all have a certain amount of synergy in them, so you can always kind of find the right combos within the decks you have. So it really creates that fun of that discovery that you miss now with the internet spoiling everything and everybody building the same decks. Now with a game like SolForge Fusion, you really can have that experience again.
And when you buy a deck, you buy half a deck and half a deck, or how do you purchase the game?
Yeah, great question. So every one of the kits comes with 4 decks. There's 4 different factions, and so there's one of each faction in the kit. So you can shuffle and mix and match any 2 different factions to play. So even a single starter or a single booster is enough for 2 people to play.
And that's the new story arc, or?
Yes, exactly. So we also have a storyline that we're telling. Actually, here at UK Games Expo, we're participating right now in the storyline tournament. And so this is our second set, which is not yet released in Europe. It'll be coming out this summer. And so it tells the next level of the story. We've introduced new card types, new mechanics. There's foil decks that can be found in here. So it creates kind of that fun of exploration.
Opening something up, having a nice card.
Exactly, but you don't have to chase after getting whatever rare card you're looking for. Every deck's fully playable by itself and creates a lot of replay.
Yeah, I really like that you cut out the card market thingy. Otherwise you would just hunt for a special good card, pay $100 and then you could play. And here you would have to buy a complete deck. So do you think there will be a market for decks?
Yeah, so certainly there will be a market for decks, right? Some people are going to want because you can shuffle build any 2 decks together, so you're going to want to find the one that's like a good combination with what you have, but you can't just say, oh, well, I'm just going to copy what somebody else has. You still have to decide, use your own intuition about what things are going to work well, and we really wanted to make it so that you don't feel like you had to do that.
The pairing's up for round 3. The pairing's up for round 3.
All right, So we wanted to make sure that you could enjoy the experience and have a good experience playing out of the box. And of course,
with the storyline cards for this round, have your special rules. A reminder: after Necreum decided to throw all of their points at one match, they got a net negative out of that, and are now still losing. So Necreum is still once again against Justin. Your game's going to start a little bit later. He's doing an interview.
Thanks.
Maybe think twice about how many points you throw this time.
Okay, a story arc, I think.
Yeah, so we've been telling the story arc in these tournaments, which is actually one of the funny things we heard over the announcements, that players, based on what they do, will change the narrative of the game. So set 2 is the Battle for White Fang Pass, and based on the results of this tournament, will determine which faction gets White Fang Pass, and so in the next sets, that card will be in their faction, and there'll be changes to what happens based on what players do, which is just a fun thing to be able to do.
A high interaction with the community.
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yes. It's something else we can do that nobody's ever done before, because each deck is one of a kind and scans into your online account. If you participate in a storyline event and you have something that remarkable that happens, you actually report it, and we write a custom story for you that gets tagged to your deck. Jeez. So if you scan your deck in, you'll see your personal story that gets added in. Our creative director, George Rockwell's here as well, and so he's taking notes through people's games and getting to participate, so it's really fun.
Are you using anything like ChatGPT to get all these stories done?
Not at present, although I do find it very interesting. Right now, I just make George work very hard to write all the stories.
Okay, well, it must be a huge amount of stories.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay. One of the topics I'm most interested about is the new upcoming Kickstarter for Shards of Infinity, because I think that's a brilliant game. Can you tell me a little bit about the upcoming Kickstarter for Shards of Infinity? Yeah,
very excited to talk about it. So it'll be launching in July. You can follow the campaign right now. The idea was to kind of make what we're calling the Saga Edition. So it's meant to be the kind of definitive version of this narrative arc of Shards of Infinity. So we released the original set plus 3 expansions, Relics of the Future, Shadow of Salvation, and Into the Horizon. And so it'll include all of that content, in addition to some new promo card content and some revised versions, all the old promo cards that we released throughout the year. So you can get everything in one box, all contained. And we've created this really cool narrative that you can play through. So it's not quite a legacy game, because but it's got this kind of Saga legacy light type feeling to it. So you can play through the story.
Players, you have 4 minutes left on the round. That's 4 minutes. There will be a 15-minute hard dice down after the 4 minutes.
So you can play through the story in a way that it will be great for new players, so you don't have to see everything all at once, because it'll unlock the content as you go. And it gives old players a really fun way to do it and accomplish little achievements throughout the game. And again, we're tweaking some of the cards. We've added some new art to cards that didn't have art before, like our Destiny cards. So it's really everything in a nice box, new components. So it's really just, I've been very lucky in my career that I've been making games long enough that I get to kind of go back and do the updated versions of things, right? So Ascension has a 10th anniversary edition, a collector's edition, and now with Shards, I'm very proud of Shards. I love that game, and now to be able to make the definitive version of it is something I can't wait to bring to life.
Pretty much wrap it up, and then you got all in one box. That's really great. Yeah. In Germany, there is the base game coming out and the first expansion, so looking forward to that. For all the viewers that have a little bit of a problem with English, but I think on Shards of Infinity there is not that much text on the cards, right? So you could play them in English?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, playing games in other languages is challenging no matter what, but we will have, we partnered with Yellow to do our localization version, so we will have everything in, obviously French and German and Spanish and all the other languages eventually. So
the definite edition will also be out in German, or haven't decided yet?
Eventually, yes. Not the Kickstarter is just going to be English language, and we will make translated versions available. So if people want to buy the English version, we can have online versions which will be translated early, and then we'll have the actual localized printed versions. I can't say exactly when, but eventually. Yeah.
And if you buy the physical copy, do you also get access to the digital one?
There is a digital version of Shards of Infinity that's just the base set, and no, that's a separate thing. Unlike SolForge.
Players, welcome to the 3rd round. You should have your special rules. Shields are going round. You have 50 minutes. You may begin. Good luck. Thank you.
Unlike with SolForge Fusion, where it's a truly hybrid game, where every physical deck also represents a digital deck, Shards of Infinity is a separate game. So there's a physical game, and then there's an app, which you can buy for very cheap, but it's a separate purchase.
But I think everything is not available for the digital version.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct.
We already mentioned it, the 10th anniversary edition for Ascension. Is there anything new coming out for Ascension in the near future?
Yeah, so for anyone that's not familiar, Ascension Tactics is our most recent version of Ascension. We just released the base game last year. It was a Kickstarter that we ran.
Players, after this round, we'll be taking a lunch break. So round 4 will begin at 2:30. Round 4, 2:30.
So we did a Kickstarter version we just kickstarted the expansion for Ascension Tactics Inferno. So for anyone that loves really awesome miniatures, and for me, again, this is one of those great things, I was able to take all my coolest characters from Ascension and then bring them to life in cool plastic miniatures. You can still late back that Kickstarter campaign. That's the only way to get the miniatures. The miniatures are not in retail. Okay. So if anybody wants that, they can do that online. Otherwise, the retail version of Ascension Tactics is now in stores, and the retail version of Ascension Tactics Inferno will be out probably next year. The biggest difference is it's cardboard standees instead of the miniatures.
Yeah, but it's good because some people don't like miniatures.
Exactly. Yeah. It's the gameplay's the same. So if you don't want the and I mean for me, I love the miniatures. They're super cool, but also it's a giant box with all the stuff, so it's more convenient. And for those, just to give the brief overview, if you know how to play Ascension, you already mostly know how to play Ascension Tactics. So it's the same deck building, right? Except instead of using power to kill monsters, you use power to command your champions. And the bigger and more powerful your miniatures, your champions are, the more they cost to command. Yeah. So that balances them out. And then it's a scenario-based game. So you can play to control territory. There's cooperative modes. There's a whole campaign. There's solo. There's 4-player, 3-player. So it's got an enormous amount of gameplay in one box, but it all builds off the fundamentals of the deck building of Ascension. So it's a fun project. I
really like that you always take the story into consideration, even like with a game like SolForge.
Yeah, I love, storytelling is it's something I'm passionate about and I love, right? I mean, and I think that different people play games for different reasons, right? There's some people who's like, I just want, the puzzle, and I want to some people that just want to win competition, and some people want to become like immersed in the world and immersed in the story, and I want to build games that have something for everybody and that you can really learn.
Star Wars Legion players, that is time on the round. Do not start a new round. You now have 15 minutes to finish the round you are on to hard dice down.
So it's funny, when I built Ascension the first time, right? I didn't have a company, I didn't have anything. I really just thought I was just making a game for me and my friends, but I still built 3 years of story arc just because I thought it was really fascinating, and I was like, it'd be really cool if I ever got to tell the story. Well, here we are 13 years later, and we're still telling stories, and we're still building on those worlds. So every time I make a new world now, I always try to think pretty far into the future into what could happen. SolForge is the hardest one because, as we mentioned, the players get to decide where the story goes. So we have to plan a variety of branching possible stories and then see what the players do.
Do you have a background in role-play games, or why are you so connected to story?
So 2 reasons really. One for me is, yes, role-playing games. I used to play Dungeons & Dragons and Shadowrun and the Amber Diceless game, and I played a ton of different role-playing games growing up. I'm very passionate about that. And 2, I was very influenced by Joseph Campbell and The Hero with a Thousand Faces and The Power of Myth. And I realized that how we learn and how we kind of grow as a society is through stories, right? Games and stories are really the 2 fundamental things. Why we play games as a species is because it lets us learn and practice in a safe environment, and why we tell stories is to sort of relate our experience to the sort of broader arc of humanity. And I think that, as silly as it is that you're playing wizards and dragons and things, right? There are real truths that can be told there, and I think it's a very powerful thing that I've just been it's had a big impact on me in my life, and I like to be able to craft that for other people. So it's just something I've always been passionate about.
I think we are living in a pretty great time for that, because you're allowed to live in stories, to experience all different kind of stories, and there are so many stories around. If you just go outside, the LARP players,
yes,
they just camp there and live their life in the story.
Yes.
it's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
exactly. And here's the secret, the real secret of life, right? We're always telling stories. Your life, who you think you are, what it is, whether you think you're successful, whether you think you call yourself a gamer or a father or a whatever. Like those are stories you're telling yourself. And so being conscious about how you craft the stories of your life is literally the most powerful thing you can do to live a life of meaning and a life of fulfillment. And so whether you take on the aspects of a warrior or a mage or a father or an entrepreneur or whatever, like those are choices that we make, and it's a very powerful way to live and be conscious of.
These kinds of answers are exactly why I follow you on Think Like a Game Designer, because you're well aware of how life works, and I think you got a deep knowledge of how games and life sort of entwine. How did you get the idea to make the podcast Think Like a Game Designer?
Yeah, so it started off. I was working on the book Think Like a Game Designer first, and I came from a background of a pro Magic player, right? I knew how to play games well from a young age, but then when I had to learn to design games, I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, literally no idea. I didn't think of myself as a creative person. I didn't understand how they thought, and so I had to sort of teach myself analytically, step by step. Okay, what does it mean to be creative? How does this work? And then once I did that, I realized there's no magic. There's no secret thing out there that you don't have, that not all of us have. It's just there's a step-by-step process, and then there's a courage that it takes to take your thing that you're working on that's not that good and show it to people, get feedback, use that and improve. And so once I learned that, and it was a very hard, painful process to learn, I wanted to share that with other people. And so that was the origins of the book. And then as part of the process of the book, and also just because I was passionate about it, I'm very lucky, I have a lot of really talented game designer friends in my life now, and really great people, and we would have conversations like this about game design, and some of them I use for my book, some of them I would just do for fun, and at some point I'm like, why am I not sharing these conversations with other people? How much would I have loved if I could have been a fly on the wall in that conversation when I was just getting started? And so I was okay, I'm going to start recording these and see what happens. And so that's where the podcast came from, was just to be able to share that experience with others. And it's been one of the best things I've done, because it's so much fun to be able to have those conversations both with people who I'm friends with, where I can have a different kind of conversation when it's a podcast, and then be able to have conversations with people who I never would have had a connection to, who I've then been able to kind of reach out to in the podcast, or then we become friends, or then I get to see their insights. So I get to learn a ton, we get to share a ton. It's just been a really fun process.
Coming to the end of the interview, I got a few words. I just throw at you, and you answer what comes to your mind.
Great.
Kennerspiel des Jahres. It's Kennerspiel, the prize in Germany that just was announced. Have you heard of it?
It's like the Spiel, but
Spiel
for
des
kids.
Jahres for experts.
For experts.
Not Child's Game is like expert,
Oh,
sort of
fascinating.
expert games, but Arcanova would never win.
Okay,
so it's a little bit over it.
Got it. Okay, great. I love it. The more things that we have, I don't know if I'm supposed to say a one-word answer or just say what I think. I don't know how this works, but the more that we can give and highlight great games for the right audience, right? It's one of the things I teach when I teach game design. It's like, it's not that there's a game is sort of good or bad in the abstract. It's good or bad for who? And so when you can say, hey, this is for people who are really into 3-hour, super deep, complex games, fantastic. That's not for me, but I'm glad that they can have a prize. So I love that. Yeah.
Next one is Kickstarter or crowdfunding.
Yeah, a game changer. I mean, it really is. It's the kind of thing that allows creators to do things that were never before possible. It allows you to get involved with your community in a way that was never before possible. I'll only say that what I tell people is, think of it like Kick Finisher, not Kickstarter. Do not just have an idea and go out with it, right? Really research, do the work, be 80 to 90% done, and then go to the crowd, and then they can help you get that last 10 or 20%. A lot of people think it's easy. It is not. So you want to do your work up front.
Yeah. If you do it on your own, there is so much more you have to do to designing a game. It's like logistics, it's production, it's all that kind of stuff.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah. So I mean, I'm a CEO and entrepreneur as well as a game designer. Maybe 20% of my time I get to spend on games now, designing games, because it's so much work additional. So be conscious about that if you're going to take all that on. Not to say don't, but just be conscious of it.
Next one is shelf space.
So I, for the last 2 years, have been a digital nomad. So I have been traveling. I don't own anything. I have one 5x10 little storage space in San Diego, and that's it. Otherwise, just a backpack and a carry-on. So my shelf space is nothing. So it's been an interesting process for me, which games I can carry with me and which ones I can't. It's very, very light. And so I think very much space. I love games. I love having back in the day when I'd have my shelf with all of the display, and it was more like arts than it was games, because I never played them because there was too many of them. Being very conscious of space and what your gameplay per space contained is something I think about a lot.
Re-release. We talked about it.
Yes, re-releasing. Yeah, again, it's a privilege. It's a privilege. I think that the ability to be able to go back and revisit the games that I have worked on and the games that people love, and present them in a way that the next generation can appreciate them, present them in a way that can be able to make them more accessible, and it's a really fun process to be able to do. Very, very rare as a game designer that you get that opportunity. So I'm very grateful for it.
And finally, evergreen.
Evergreen, yeah. Well, that's a wonderful place to be, also, right? I never would have dreamed. I literally poured my life savings into my first print of Ascension, right? I never really thought it was going to go anywhere. I just wanted to make it for me and my friends, and the fact that here we are 13 years later and still able to produce and have people play the game and love it, it's a dream come true, right? And so being able to have games that people can connect with, and now they come up to me at conventions like this, and they'll come up with their son or their daughter who wasn't born when Ascension was released, and now they connect and play on it together. It's like that's what makes me come alive, to be able to build things like that. So it's fantastic.
Thanks, Justin. It was a pleasure. Good luck with all your endeavors, and now good luck for the SolForge tournament.
Thank you so much.